If he had a full house, he probably already had it. So kills out the shove, and very interesting one. So we've got an under the gun open raiser and a button flatter. Let's go back a little bit. Okay, this is fine. I mean, especially when you're deep, right? Flatting stuff like pocket pairs is kind of sweet. Trying to flop a set. Whoa, not so fast, not so fast. So, and we see a 5-3-3 flop. Okay, so the big blind also called Alex. Alex doesn't have a full stack, so I don't know if he's a recreational player or not. Maybe he's fantastic. But Max ends up c-betting under the gun. I mean, this board is very, very dry. There's not much going on. It's possible that the button has pocket fives or pocket threes, maybe like ace three suited. Maybe the big blind has something, but all of those hands are somewhat unlikely. So if Max is a hand like, let's say, pocket tens, you know, he's thinking, well, my hand needs a lot of protection. There's a lot of value in my hand. Let me just go ahead and c-bet. So turn is an ace, and Max is not really going to c-bet many ace-x. Pancho is maybe going to flat the button with some aces, maybe flats hand like ace-queen on the button and then calls. The ace is also not very good for Alex. Maybe Alex has like ace-4, ace-5, but shouldn't really matter too much. So Pancho does bet here. He's saying, hey, I'm most likely to have an ace, or at least I'm likely to have an ace. I'm going to value bet here. It's hard for me to bluff, so I'm going to bet a little bit smaller. So he goes for a quarter pot bet. And let's see what Alex does. Alex should just be folding very, very often here. It's not like he can really have a whole lot. I mean, maybe he has 4 deuce suited as well, but unlikely. And so the very strange play here, right? So Alex check raises. So he's saying, hey, I slow played 4 deuce. I have a 3. I have a hand like pocket fives. And then Max just cold call behind. So when Max calls here, I guess he could just be slow playing the nuts, like ace is full. Maybe he has like a flush draw. Maybe just has a hand like ace king and he doesn't believe anybody. And then even more strange, Pancho calls behind, right? What does Pancho have? Does he just have a flush draw? Is he trapping with the nuts? So Max ends up betting here, and when Max bets like this, multi-way, it's very difficult to be bluffing, right? Maybe he took a hand like pocket fours or 5-4 suited and turned it into a bluff, or maybe a flush draw, but it's not easy to have a lot of bluffs. So when Pancho just ships behind, man, this is a tough one to be bluffing in, right? Maybe Pancho has a hand like 5-4 suited, and he just, you know, floated the turn hoping to bluff the river. Alex, at least, is a very easy spot. I mean, unless he has the very nuts, he can just fold. And Max, let's see what Max does. Max calls 200 big blinds, and he has been successfully trapped. Wow, okay. That's a pretty sick hand. So Max opens ace-10 under the gun, absolutely fine. Pancho flats 3s on the button, which is a little bit on the loose side, but absolutely fine. And we'll never know what Alex has. So Pancho stabs quads on the flop. I mean, can't really blame him, right? Would be cool to just sometimes check behind and, you know, see if you can get some... Oh, no, wait, actually... under the gun c-bet. So it's fine to just call here. Your range is quite capped. You may have some hands like pocket 9s or something. And you obviously have some hands like a 3 or pocket 5s, pocket 3s. But other than that, you don't really have much. So Pancho's thinking, hey, let me just go ahead and slow play here mostly, which makes a lot of sense. And then Alex, I don't know what Alex has. And then on the turn, Pancho ends up betting, betting himself, thinking, well, I want to value bet ace-queen potentially or ace-jack, and I want to build a pot with queens, or sorry, with 3s. And once he sees this action, right, raise and a call in front of him, he's thinking, well, if these guys are bluffing or if they're drawing, I want him to hit. I want him to keep bluffing. I'm just going to call. I'm just going to pretend like I have a combo draw. I'm going to pretend like I have an ace and it's a tough spot, and I'll trap these guys on the river, which he successfully did. I mean, Max just bet out, and he faced a 9x shove on the river for 200 big blinds. I mean, it's just very, very difficult to be bluffing here. Most guys at 500 Zoom will not find enough bluffs. And I would imagine that most people at any stake would not find enough bluffs. It's a very tough spot, right? But Pancho did get called. I mean, once you shove there, I would say it's pretty obvious that Pancho just has, you know, 3s or 5s most of the time. But maybe he's bluffing ace-5 suited. Maybe he has a 5, right? So it would be a super sick bluff spot. If I were playing a really tough player, like let's say Stefan or Limitless, I would consider making the call in Max's spot. But against a really bad nit, probably just want to go ahead and make the tough fold. So really nice hand right there to start. What do you guys think? Let's see. So Sanctity opens 2.5x. I generally recommend the smaller sizing, but 2.5x is absolutely fine. And then Capitan ends up flatting here. He's from Greece, so Maybe he's not the strongest player ever, but maybe he's very good. I don't know him. And we've got Zygmunt Finn. That's not the real Zygmunt. Flatting on the button, and he's getting a much better price now, right? Because there's more money in the pot, and he's gonna have position on 2 people, not just 1. And of course, I don't like those people, right? I mean, you call multi-way, you're trying to just hit your set, and of course somebody has to spoil the party and squeeze. And Maxim does make it 15 big blinds, but I mean, it is a good play, right? Maxim knows that Capitan probably doesn't have the strongest range. Zygmunt's range is even weaker because, I mean, he didn't squeeze and he has a better price to call. So Maxim knows that he mostly has to worry about Sanctity. And now that Sanctity's folded, I mean, not only Zygmunt is left, and Zygmunt is really in a tough spot, but he does call. Flops ace 7-4. Pretty good flop for Maxim. He's going to squeeze every single ace king, probably ace queen, hands like ace jack suited, right? Maybe ace 4, ace 7 suited, aces, maybe 7s. He will even have good backdoor sometimes if he had a hand like 10-9 suited, so he can be very aggressive with c-bets. Okay, so it actually does get checked through. Most people end up betting their entire range here, but maybe Maxim just checks occasionally. Maybe he just checked aces because he thinks Zygmunt is a big fish. Who knows, right? Small bet on the turn. The turn's still pretty dry. Maybe Zygmunt hit pocket 9s, maybe hit like ace 9 suited, or maybe he has his jack 10 of clubs and or diamonds, and he has a good draw. But other than that, there's not really much happening here, so don't need to bet super large. 3 doesn't really change anything. I mean, maybe Zygmunt has 5, 6 suited, or ace 3 suited, but again, pretty unlikely, right? But Zygmunt does shove, so what is he representing here, right? Is he making some super thin value shove with hand like ace jack, ace 3, pocket 9s? Maybe he's bluffing with a hand like, I don't know, 6, 7 suited. It's a tough spot for Maxim to be in, unless he, of course, he just slow played aces. Okay, so Maxim does have ace 10 suited, which is if you're going to have a checking range on this board, this hand is fine to check with. Your hand has a solid kicker, but not fantastic. And once you triple barrel, you're often going to get called by worse. So ace 10 suited makes sense to check. And Zygmunt happened to just have one of the very few hands he can shove for value, like 9s, maybe 5, 6, maybe ace 3. But 9s is a good value shove, obviously. You're only behind against aces, which Maxim sometimes will trap in this manner. So nice hand over there. I like it. Zygmunt definitely could have squeezed here on the button. I mean, Capitan is an unknown player who he is very deep against, so you definitely could have squeezed for value if you think that Capitan's range is very weak. So by not squeezing, Zygmunt must have thought, okay, Capitan is a pretty good player. He's not just flatting garbage here, right? But if Capitan were to have, let's say, hands like ace 9 offsuit, 9s are just doing fantastically well. So nice hand to both guys. I like it. All right, so we've got a 2.5x open raise by Chips and Crisps. I, again, open a little bit smaller, even on the button, but 2.5 is a fine sizing I actually used for most of my career. And Kills Avatar goes for a 10BB 3-bet. Most people tend to go a little bit bigger, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It just changes your pre- and post-flop strategy a little bit. Not that much. All right. So we've got a third pot bet by Kills Avatar. So you could go a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller, but the point is that you have to be aggressive on a board like this. I mean, Kills Avatar is going to have kings and pocket kings, or kings and ace king, and king queen and king jack and all those other hands every time, basically. So you're going to have a lot of trips here, and Chips and Crisps cannot have a flush draw. He cannot have a straight draw. He's just not doing very well. So perfectly fine with a third pot bet. And Chips and Crisps is also not going to do a crazy amount of raising because, again, he's behind on this board, right? There's not a whole lot to have. And so Kills Avatar ends up checking here. So when he checks, he's saying, I've got a whole lot of nothing a lot, like 10-9 of, 10-9 of diamonds and stuff like that. And then sometimes he will trap with a really strong hand like kings or a king. And sometimes he'll check some type of medium strength hand as well. So Chips and Crisps is attempting to make some kind of very thin value bet here. And Kills Avatar saying, hey, you're not allowed to just bet sixes here and get the showdown. I'm going to punish you. I'm going to punish you for making these thin value bets and put you in a really difficult spot. So Chips and Crisps does call, okay. River's a 6, doesn't change a whole lot. I guess Chips could have a hand like pocket sixes, but if he had a full house, he probably already had it. So Kills Avatar does shove. And very interesting one. So Kills has ace queen suited, which is a great 3-bet. I mean, your hand is amazing. One of my favorite hands, actually, ace queen suited. It plays well in virtually every spot. And so he c-bets probably full range or at least close to it. And he actually check raises the turn. So he's thinking, well, I block ace king, I block king queen, I unblock a lot of the backdoor floats. So if I can get my opponent to just fold 10-9 suited, he was stabbing, a hand that he floated on the flop, that's okay with me. And so in the river, he's basically trying to get chips and crisps to fold everything except for a king or better. And he's going to have a lot of success, right? He's going to get chips to fold a flush draw. He's going to get him to fold a hand like pocket nines a decent amount. So a very tough spot to be in. So I really like the fact that Kills really applied a lot of pressure to Chips' range. He just used poor timing because Chips had the nuts, basically. But yeah, I like the play. It's something you can't just do every time because you're representing a pretty thin range for value. But at the same time, I think it's a good play technically. I like it. Okay, so we've got a 2.5x open raise actually by Seta Benny, who I remember last time I played him, he had crazy looking stats, very loose and aggressive, and he's from Finland, I would guess. He's from no country, apparently. I think he's from Finland. Anyway, Vit 90 ends up 3-betting to 9 big blinds. I would have liked a little bit of a smaller 3-bet, but it's fine. And Seta Benny calls. 3 deuce deuce. I mean, it's funny, guys. Last week, we did a webinar for the BluffTheSpot Lab Plus. We covered exactly this spot. So the guys who are listening, they know what to do on the blank card, right? You probably remember, but that's only for the webinar members or the Lab Plus members. So, I mean, Vit's going to go crazy here. He's got an enormous range advantage here. And so he goes for the small bet, which I'm fine with. Seta Benny ends up calling. Benny's not going to do an insane amount of check raising just because he doesn't have a whole lot. Turn queen is a great card for Vit. I mean, he's going to see but a lot of random queen X, ace queen, king queen, queen jack. Seta Benny's going to be floating some king queen, ace queens as well. And Vit goes for the big bet. Fine. And river brings the flush, but I don't think Seta Benny has too many flushes here. And Vit ends up shoving. And Vit ends up having ace queen here. So he's thinking, well, if my opponent has a flush, it's most likely going to be the ace high flush, and I block that. So he cannot have a queen plus club, so it's very unlikely I'm behind. And Seta Benny's thinking, well, I don't have many flushes. King queen suited is one of the better hands in my range. I still beat hands like, random king 10, king jacks, low straight draws, and random stupid hands I beat. So I need to call this hand. And he's right. In theory, he does need to call his hand. So nice play by both of them. So this is the most Dutch name you'll ever see. It's not 2 but 3 in Dutch. A bit random. So he goes for a 2.2x open raise, and he gets 3-bet really small by somebody I've never seen. So maybe this player is a bit weaker, maybe not. Pretty close here. I would say 4-betting is a cool play. I like the 4-bet and gets called. And 9-4 deuce is a very good board for the pre-flop 4-better. It doesn't improve him a bunch, but it also doesn't hurt him, and it doesn't really improve out of position. Maybe pocket nines. And so it doesn't make any sense for Vince to lead out here, right? He's got fewer aces, kings, queens than his opponent. So why would you lead out when this board doesn't improve you very much? And so not 2 but 3 calls. Turn is a 9. Maybe a Vince was leading that one. Maybe Nitwee Madri has ace 9 suited or king 9 suited, but pretty unlikely. So Vince is really trying to represent the 9 here. River 4 shouldn't really do anything. Vince shoves anyway and loses jacks to queens. Okay. So Vince, I don't mind him getting in the jacks one way or another, but what I do mind is effectively led, right? He's behind. So he's not looking at whose range is stronger. He's just looking at his hand. So that's a very basic mistake. I don't like the MP players play either. Why would you call the flop? Why not raise the flop? Your hand is very good, but needs a lot of protection. And when a recreational player just leads into you in a 4-bet pot, he most likely just has something. So yeah, I really don't like MP's play. He should just raise. I mean, I don't even like coaching him almost, but this play is so obvious. I mean, it's very obvious that he should raise, I think. And then you don't have to go all in right away, but I would definitely go ahead and raise. And Vince overplayed his hand. So yeah, not a big fan of either play.